Yo people, welcome back to the YouTube channel. You already know what time it is. It's time for Tactical Tuchel and Tactical Tease. We're going to have a nice little collaboration with the gaffer and have some words about what happened yesterday and just take it back a notch. Look at it from a perspective of now I've been able to watch it back. I'm able to be in a calmer, less emotional fashion and really pick apart what I feel we need in this game and what we need going forward. More importantly, what we need going forward. The window is closed. We know who we're working with, and it's now time to get the best out of that because Chelsea need to go on a run. Now, first of all, obviously that was such a critical win, regardless of the way that we played in the most opening exchange of that game until the substitutions were made. West Ham were always going to be a very difficult team to play. We know that they're a top 7 stroke top 6 team in the recent seasons, and we know quality is clear in their team, even though David Moyes sets up in some really negative ways sometimes, despite the talent he has at his disposal. But we know, being Chelsea, that at Stamford Bridge, with our home record, which has taken a massive knock over the last 12 months, we are going to be playing teams that want to set up deep because they know that is our kryptonite, that is our weakness, that is the issue with the team, is the fact that we come up against those low blocks and we struggle. We struggle to create enough chances, we struggle to create clear-cut opportunities, and we just don't like it. We prefer to play in transition. We prefer to be a team like in the Champions League, like in those big games that open up teams with quick transitions and quick counters. That's where we are afforded more space when we're having those back and forths, and I've mentioned that before. Now, I want to start from back to front, all right? Let's start with Mendy. First thing we've learned is that Mendy is not as commanding as he was in terms of his aura, in terms of his confidence. His confidence has clearly taken a hit. In both the goals conceded, you could see him retracting more so than extracting. More time when Mendy was confident at the start of his reign, he was showing his size. He was massive. He was a giant in goal. It was a welcome change to Kepa, who was quite minuscule. Again, a sign of lack of confidence. This was a player that was on the downward trajectory. But under Tuchel, we have seen Kepa do a lot better as a standing goalkeeper. And I personally think for that Dinamo Zagreb game, it is time to give Kepa his shot because Mendy needs that wake-up call and he needs to have that shake-up. Now, where's the lack of confidence coming from for Mendy? We know from a ball-playing aspect, he's always had a little bit of a tough time. But in terms of shots stopping and saving and claiming, and all of these things were strong points for him. And ball-playing was just an added bonus if he was to do extremely well in that category. I think now, people are asking questions. Is it Petr Cech leaving? But then we saw question marks last season as well. Is it the fact that maybe the goalkeeping coaches, are they not good enough? People are pointing the finger at Hilario. I'm not really sure, but what I do know is that we're facing a lot more shots than we were last season at this point. This point last season, we were on course for our best defensive record in the Premier League ever. You know, we were trying to eclipse Jose Mourinho. Now I'm seeing stats like he has had more shots faced than Ederson and Alisson combined. So first of all, I do think we need to tighten up, but also I think from his standpoint, just taking him out of the team and seeing if there is a reaction from him in that regard, we go from there. Now, in the defence, you know, Fofana, really strong debut. He's going to have little moments where he could definitely even clean up. He's still a young player. Alongside Thiago Silva, you're expecting that to happen. Thiago Silva, once again, a monstro, an absolute Rolls Royce of a centre-back. What we will do without him, I do not know. But I'm going to get into more about this player because for me, Thiago Silva is so good at times, it makes others around him. I've spoken about this with other players before, more so in the forward line, whether it be Cristiano Ronaldo, etc., where players tend to actually almost lean on the brilliance, on the greatness of a Ronaldo, of a Silva too much, and it actually makes them retract and it makes them actually become less responsible for what they need to do. And I think Chelsea suffer from that on the ball. You'll see a lot of the time Thiago Silva picking up the ball in the middle of a back three and spraying the ball about, and that's all fantastic to see. But he seems to be Chelsea's go-to guy when we are in possession, and that's not great when he's a centre-back. If that was the epicenter, a number 10, a Cesc Fabregas, a Mesut Ozil of these older times, a David Silva, then Chelsea would create more and more chances. And obviously you keep feeding the ball to a creative player in an attacking position and you're going to keep creating chances. A Kevin De Bruyne, if you will. But when it's Thiago Silva at centre-back, there's only so much he can do. And so many times you see Chelsea players have the ball and instead of taking on that riskier pass, they look to just go back and find Thiago Silva and we start the build-up play once again because they know he's a safe option. They know he's extremely good on the ball. But the amount of touches and the amount amount of the ball that he has is not necessarily a good thing, because again, we need to be further up the pitch and moving the ball a lot faster. Now, when you look at Koulibaly, Cucurella, I think Cucurella, we definitely learned something from him. That would be my second lesson learned, is of course that he is still needing to be coached. He is still getting used to this role in a Chelsea team. And he's not going to crash the box as much as a Chilwell and an Alonso. We saw Chilwell when he came on, he crashed the box really well. He got in there and gave us that extra outlet in there in terms of numbers, in terms of just bodies forward. And Reece James and Chilwell have been really, really good at that, bringing goals to the team. And that is one of Cucurella's, to say, weaknesses, is he's not going to give you a lot of goals from that position. It's something that was highlighted, that he does need to get more goals and more assists from that left wing back spot when he comes to a top team like Chelsea. And obviously those crosses at times in the last few games have been a bit wayward as well. Defensively, don't really have too many issues. He's very good on the ball. He's going to open up all those options. He's very smooth with it. But as he's coached over time, hopefully he starts crashing that box when we need him to, because with these wing backs, they just have to be, they almost have to be at times second strikers. They've got to be those guys that make those underlapping runs that give us something extra in the box. It's just the way the system is panned out. Now, Loftus-Cheek at DM, I never like. We always talk about it. He's an 8. He's a more advanced player. Even at wing back, at least he's allowed to carry the ball. Now, he's obviously played there today. Jorginho was dropped, and you have to take a look at why. Now, maybe it's the physicality. We saw Jorginho dribbled past quite easily against Southampton after playing in a team that had 10 men the weekend before. Potentially fatigue, potentially just taking him out and actually looking after him and saying, listen, we know you can't play every single game. You're not athletic as it is, so you're going to probably not last as long as many others. Now, for me, this is a massive area of the team that we have to sort out. And when Jorginho came on for that goal that was conceded, thankfully ruled out, Jorginho is jogging back. Jorginho is not getting back quickly enough before Cornet scores. Of course, Reece James has a mistake there, headers it back. We don't want to see that. And Mendy obviously has a situation where, for me, I still feel like we're incredibly lucky. And I feel like, yes, people will say that could have been a foul from a Chelsea standpoint, but I do think it's a bit soft in a way as well. And yes, I get it. Goalkeepers have to be protected, all these things. We all remember Petr Cech against Reading. But Jorginho, if you watch that clip, is not getting back quickly enough. He's not covering the situation. He's not seeking the danger, understanding that we are in trouble. And it's only until the shot is taken by Cornet that he actually starts to move. And we're seeing too often from Jorginho in this position that he is a liability defensively in terms of mobility, in terms of getting to situations and physically coping with situations. And that is why, for me, his best pivot partner has always been N'Golo Kante. Or sometimes, if we're completely dominating a match and we just want to have possession constantly, we're up against the most negative team possible, then a Mateo Kovacic. But most of the time in those bigger games, Real Madrid, etc., in those Champions League wins, it is N'Golo Kante, because they complement each other they just complement each other so well. N'Golo Kante covers the ground, he wins those tackles, he wins those interceptions. Jorginho was leading for tackles and interceptions at the Euros, in the Champions League win, and he had that fantastic year where he was up for awards. But he does that in close quarters, he does that in very close proximities. And when you ask him to cover more space and open up a little bit, that's where we're in trouble. And we should never be too open. I don't want us to be the next Liverpool, where we're playing a ridiculous high line, conceding crazy one-on-one chances and expecting someone like Alisson to bail us out. But we do need to expand our play just a little bit more and just open up a bit more at times, because it would suit the players that I'm about to talk about next. The likes of Gallagher, the likes of even Pulisic and Sterling, against those low blocks, you're seeing Sterling is having to drop deep, and he is very comfortable dropping into those pockets in between the line of midfield and attack, and he's getting in behind where the defensive midfielders are meant to be, picking up the ball and trying to get it and turn, because we don't have anybody to do that. We don't have enough real creativity and individualism or in the team. Now, of course, yes, we do want to be balanced, and we can play and pass our way to death and try to obviously, make something happen with a perfect team goal, but that means the passing needs to be very crisp. And what you're seeing with Chelsea right now is the passing in those tighter areas is breaking down quite a lot. We're seeing that there's not enough players that can take players on, and really it is Sterling who is the most reliable. And instead of Sterling making those third man runs that he was making at Manchester City, where he would get in behind and he would be on the back post more often and he would be the final touch to get more goals, he's also having to now get involved even more in the build-up play and drop deep, because we don't have a Bernardo Silva or Kevin De Bruyne picking up the ball in those half spaces and playing that final pass to a Sterling. So we're getting less off the ball running from him in terms of actually stretching teams, and he's having to become the creative outlet as well. Gallagher, This is, for me, a player, yes, people will feel I've been really harsh on, and I want to tone that down here and say, listen, in a possession-based team, this is not your guy. Now, if we're going to play him in a possession-based team, you want him ideally making those third-man runs. You want him crashing the box, maybe even like a Gundogan, even though Gundogan is obviously far superior technically. But what you'll see again at Man City is they'll build up play down the right-hand side. Bernardo Silva, Kevin De Bruyne, we could potentially look at doing that with a Ziyech, with maybe a Kai, and Reece James, etc. And then Gallagher is making that run from the other side into the box, and that's where the Chilwells, the Gallaghers, they get into the box and they give us those extra numbers in there, along with a Broja or an Aubameyang, if we're going to go down that route. And the build-up could be majority down the right-hand side and then crashing the box from the left. And that's the way I'm looking at it. Now, for him, I think he'd also benefit if we was to maybe become more defensive. And this is something that we're seeing even Tottenham do with Conte. They don't have a lot of playmakers in their team outside of Harry Kane. And sometimes you'll look at Tottenham and they'll be a little bit retracted, a little bit defensive, or a little bit, not really trying to dominate. And I think that's on purpose because they know that it's much easier for them to break and to counter. And you'll see over the years, Chelsea were brilliant at it. Willian, Hazard, Costa, big away days, countering teams at Old Trafford, at Etihad, and just springing on teams. And Pulisic, even at home to Manchester City, a wonderful goal where he put a Mendy on his backside and scored as well. Chelsea in transition, in a team where you're not good at opening low blocks, you're not good at dominating the ball completely, you're not good at potentially picking those absolute incisive passes. That's a team that Gallagher could maybe thrive in transition. Maybe Chelsea sit off a little bit in their block. It's not entertaining, but I'm not saying what we saw with possession was entertaining either, so you have to pick or choose. And this actually might help us create more opportunities like it did at home to Leicester, where we hadn't have the majority of possession because we had 10 men, and then we do spring on them and create those opportunities. And Sterling will no doubt with his pace thrive on that. Havertz has been used to that in Bayer Leverkusen with a little bit more space to operate in. I'm going to come to him in a minute. Gallagher certainly will thrive on that. Broja at Southampton had a little bit more space to move in. He'll thrive. Aubameyang will certainly thrive with his pace as well. So Loftus-Cheek carrying the ball. All of these guys that I'm talking about, if we are a team that just sit off a little bit sometimes and we just drop a bit deeper and we just soak it up, and we have those names in defense, even though with the set pieces, which is another thing that we have to address, which is at the moment a problem because we continue to keep conceding goals from aerial situations or from set pieces. Maybe a lack of communication, maybe a lack of real leadership. There's no Azpilicueta, no Jorginho. They're not the most physically imposing players either. We have to take a look at that. We have Silva, but we probably need more. We need more talkers. So, but back to that transitional, when you look at the players hopefully moving through the field on a transitional front, Chelsea could be quite a threat on the counter. Now, obviously, the finishing will need to be clinical, but it will help those players attack those spaces and have more room to maneuver what they're trying to do. But that's obviously not what Tuchel is about. He's obviously possession-based, and he wants to be, a team that dominate the ball. And that's where the next thing is, right? So we've learned about Kai. Potentially for me, when he came off the bench, he looked really good, a little bit deeper off the striker. We know he's not a prolific goal scorer despite the really, really well executed finish. And I really hope that shush for Said and all them, man, Shy Kai, hopefully that's a run. We need Kai to do this consistently, and hopefully his arrival into the box, again, much like a Gallagher, players that want to arrive into the box late, off of a Broja or an Aubameyang, who again, not really your ideal focal point, but potentially is going to have to play that role at Chelsea at times as well. But Broja, for me, needs to play against Dinamo Zagreb, because this guy was just really, really, again, positive when he came on. He gives us that focal point. He gives us that guy that we can say, right, he's going to be where we build from, and everybody around him can arrive, can try to create. And we saw that when he came on, positive, really, really positive, and involved in the goal. And seems really composed as well, which is good to see. He seems composed. He seems like he knows what he wants to do when he comes onto the pitch and how he wants to affect the game. So I think that's two positive moments off the bench. A big new contract. I would like to see him start against Dinamo Zagreb 100%. Kai, like I said, just playing a little bit off a striker. Potentially, I want to see Kai more in a more creative role. I want to see more creativity from him. I know he has the ability to help us maybe in build up, help us create those chances off that left, have a bit more of that flair, have a bit more of that vision that we saw at Bayer Leverkusen, and maybe just dropping him deeper into a role that you've seen Mason Mount play in a front three. That might just hopefully get more out of Kai, because I want to see the whole range of the player now. We have been for too long seeing just glimpses of Kai, but not enough, and this hopefully is the start of that, because the arrival into the box being unmarked, untracked, was really good. And he's not the most, physical, he's not the most imposing, so maybe when he's just already in there, he's going to be dominated and bullied, which is clearly what Tuchel tried to avoid. He just went with Pulisic and Sterling and didn't even go over focal point, because maybe he felt like West Ham were just going to be too dominating. But I do want to see now if Kai can be that arriver as well as a creator as well, and have that vision to spot those passes for your Chilwells at the back post, for your Gallaghers who could make those crashing box runs, etc. So on to my point here. So for me, Mendy. For me, Cucurella, we're learning, needs more coaching. That's your second point. Your third point is Kai as well, maybe dropping off a bit deeper. Your fourth point is the transitional, maybe Aubameyang or Broja or Kai alongside a Pulisic or a Sterling, a very clear player that will be around about in the box or will carry the ball. Kai can carry the ball as well if we're on transitions, if we're on counters. I have no doubt about that. Along with Pulisic and Sterling, and then Broja and Aubameyang are your strikers in that potential 3-4-1-2. If you used to put a Gallagher or a Mount just behind those two forwards as press instigators in a transitional team who are going to sit off and then pounce. The last point is Zakaria. Zakaria is going to be huge for Chelsea. Absolutely huge. I don't want to put too much pressure on the player, mainly because he's coming back from injuries. A lot of people, when they talk about him, they say that he's regressed in a bit, and he's regressed in a way because of those injuries that he had before. And, before that Juventus move, obviously at Mönchengladbach, he was very promising. They haven't seen as of yet him get back to that level. This is what people tell me that they've watched him. I'm hoping Tuchel is just going to use him as a standard holding midfielder. Very basic role for him, which is sit there, do the basic things, and really, hopefully cover that defense in terms of, just blocking any traffic and just really, shielding. That's all you got to do. Simple passes, do your jobs, shielding. And then I want to see if that opens up the rest of the team to then play in some more natural positions. And let's see if we can get Ruben Loftus-Cheek in the 8 if he plays, Mason Mount in the 8, Gallagher in the 8, Kovacic as well in the 8. Let's just see if we can open up the team a little bit more. Sterling more actually maybe out wide, play wingers out wide in winger positions. Broja could play up top. Aubameyang could play like a mixture of the two. That's another outlet, but that all depends on Zakaria, because obviously Kante is not fit. And like I said, Jorginho on his own in that DM role without Kante, without an Allen at Napoli, without someone who's rigorous and doing their due diligence, with these 8s that are not really defensively good enough to help a Jorginho, and not aware enough, that's a problem for Chelsea at the moment. So for me, Zakaria has to be the truth, and we shall see. With Tuchel, we'll see what happens. I think with him, so much sarcasm in that post-match press conference. He was saying, listen, I'm not going to speak about the VAR situation because I'm not out here trying to pay some more money, throw some more shillings at this. I'm good. You can have your decision and your mind made up in the studio. I'm not involved. Decision went my way. I'm happy with the VAR. They don't get in trouble. Happy days. They made the decision. We love it. You know what I'm saying? If we're shameless. So yeah, and hopefully the Zakaria wing-back thing was just sarcasm for Twitter. I saw him, potentially he thought that he could play Zakaria at wing-back. I hope that's not true, and I hope he's just being sarcastic because everybody keeps saying when we're about to sign a player, Thomas Tuchel go and play them at wing-back. So that's how I see that. But these are my 5 points. Like I said, Mendy for Kepa against Dinamo Zagreb. Cucurella still needs a bit of coaching at left wing back. If we really need a goal and an extra presence in that box, he needs to be able to crash it a little bit better. And obviously his assists have got to go up, but mainly those goals as well. But that is really not what you want. Ideally, is you're asking a player all the way over there to get you goals. Really, you just want the forward line to get it. So, that's potentially just, putting the blame on somebody that really shouldn't really have to get goals in this team. We should now, with Aubameyang, with Havertz, with Broja, with Sterling, with Pulisic, with Mount, with Gallagher, we should be able to get enough goals, surely, especially when this is what's being chosen, what's being picked, and what's being preferred by the manager. So hopefully we should be able to get some goals. And like I said, so Mendy, so Cucurella, which for me, Cucurella could easily go and play in that back three. On the left side, move Koulibaly into the middle and put Fofana on the right. That's another place that Cucurella could play. You know, when we spoke about the signing, he could underlap Chilwell in a way, or he could overlap Chilwell, or he could just cover for Chilwell in transitions. So many little variations. I really want to see Cucurella and Chilwell line up together. Havertz is another point as well. Transitions in terms of maybe the way we approach things going forward. I know it's not the most progressive way, sitting off and countering, but it could be the way that gets us top four, in my opinion, if we absolutely have to go down that route. And like I said, the final point, Zakaria as well. Very, very important player for us already, and he hasn't even kicked a ball yet. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this all goes, but big up your damn selves. Let me know what you think in the comments down below of the way that we've kind of approached things and discussed things. And yeah, this is kind of like your calm post-mortem of the madness that occurred against West Ham. Really, really important victory. And yeah, we need no more brain farts, ladies and gentlemen. No more Reece James backheaders, no more Mendy moments, no more Jorginho not running, no more of this. We just need focus. Absolute focus. In a bit, people. Peace.